cup at a time. Tea time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome, guys. It is tea time. It's evening tea time. That's right. We weren't here this afternoon. That tea time has been rescheduled until September 11th with Jacqueline Wales from Scotland. So we'll see her on September 11th. But we have the amazing Anna J. Stewart in the back, and she's going to be talking about her book, Exposed. So we're going to get some romance, some suspense. We're going to just pour it, and we're going to do some spice tonight. So we're going to have a spicy tea. So if you want, grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab a glass of wine. You don't have to drink tea on Tea Time with Miss Liz. So let's get started with the disclaimer and a little bit of intro on Anna, and then let's get Anna in here, and she's going to spill a good saucy tea with you tonight. So, disclaimer for Miss Liz's live tea shows. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect that and will see you at a later date and time for another tea time. And again, all tea times this year in 2023 are done on a Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If they are on a Monday or Tuesday, it is a rescheduled tea time. So let me give you a little bit on who Anna is. Anna J. Stewart is the USA Today best-selling author of more than 50 sweet to spicy romances. Preliminary writing for Harlequin, Heartwarming, Sweet Romance, and Romantic Suspense spicy lines. She also writes for Manor, Caezik Romance. I'll get her to say that when she comes in. In addition to being a Holt Medallion winner, Bride on the Run, she's a final in both the Daphne du Maurier and the National Reader's Choice. In 2019, one of her books was optioned for television. No matter the story, Anna's books are always about family. So we're going to get Anna in here and we're going to share a little bit more. But if you want to get Anna's full bio, you can check out Miss Liz's Facebook page, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that good stuff. So let me get Anna in here and let me take a sip of tea. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Liz. It's so great to be here with you and your followers. Hi, everybody.
So, Anna, let's start off with who you were as a little girl and who you are now.
Oh, that's it. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So, I was the little girl who always had her nose in a book. I can't remember a time I didn't have. In fact, one of the earliest pictures ever taken of me, I think I was about 3 or 4 years old. And this was back in the 70s. So in the Wayback Machine. And I was sitting in a chair with one of those hair dryers that had the cord and the lap thing. But on top of the lap thing was a book. And I was reading while I was in. So that is me in a nutshell from when I was a kid. But yeah, I grew up in San Francisco. I currently live in Sacramento, which is about an hour and a half northeast-ish. And had a great I loved growing up in the 70s and the 80s. I mean, I feel so fortunate that I did, because it was, you know, play outside until the night was dark, and then you go in, and I could walk to my grammar school or take the bus to my high school, and it was great. But at the heart was always a book of everything. I had a great library down a few blocks away from my house. I had a great used bookstore that, when I discovered romance novels, came in very handy. And I grew up in kind of a small town neighborhood in the Sunset District on Irving Street. For those familiar with San Francisco, you'd be very familiar with that, although it's completely different now. So yeah, that was me as a little girl, out and skateboarding and roller skating. There were no roller blades in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, with a book in my hand usually.
Yeah, it was fun back then, because when the lights came on, we knew we had to get our butts home, right? Like, it was lights are on, okay, time to go home.
Exactly.
Miss those days. Like, we used to really, you know, just get outside and socialize and connect with people. So what age did you start writing your own books?
Oh, well, I discovered writing in high school. And it was by accident. A group of friends had started writing what now we would call fan fiction. So it was like mini romances featuring our favorite rock stars. And everybody else outgrew it, and I didn't. It was like some kind of drug for me. I was a horrible student, because all I wanted to do was read and write these stories. And shortly thereafter, I started writing these stories. I discovered romance novels. Somebody gave me one to read, and then I'm like, well, that's just it. I mean, there wasn't any other. I took a lot of pass around trying to find something else until I came full circle right back around to romances. So probably about 13, 14 years old, I would head home from school just so I could get to my typewriter, so I could finish up whatever story I was writing, or I would write out longhand. I had binders of longhand written stories that were just horrible, but I still have them. They're not going anywhere, although I'm going to make sure in my will it says to burn them. But so yeah, it was that's really when I got bit by the bug. It took me a long time to get serious about it and to educate myself and to land on the idea of it being my career. But it was a fun road on the way to discovering that.
Well, you have like over 50 books. So
yeah.
How old were you when your first book came out?
Let's see. So it was 2014. So I was 44.
Oh.
Yeah. Took me quite a while. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and originally my dream was to publish in paranormal romance. And I'm somebody who I wanted traditional publishing. I'm not built for indie publishing. That takes so much freaking work, and in areas I'm not necessarily good at. So traditional publishing was always the route I wanted to take. And when it wasn't going to happen with paranormal romance, my agent at the time said, "What else do you have?" And I had a really old contemporary romance that was actually the first book I ever finished. And she said, "Okay, let's rework this and take it out on submission." And eventually, in a couple of months, I did that. And then I sold that book, and at the same time sold a novella to Harlequin. So I took that as a sign of, okay, let's go ahead with the contemporary romance. That seems to be what's going to work. So
what's the difference, Anna, between the traditional and the indie?
Well, traditional, I'm working with a traditional publisher, a New York publisher. Canadian, actually. Harlequin is primarily based in Toronto and in New York. But that's where, you're submitting to an editor, hoping that they're going to like your work and that they'll buy your work and then that they'll publish your work. So you're working with that editor one-on-one to get that book polished and then out on the shelves. So it's a whole process working with a traditional editor at a traditional publishing house. You let go of a lot of control that way. I don't have really any say over covers or back cover copy. They do all the stuff that I kind of don't know how to do. I'm technologically challenged. So, yeah. So indie authors, on the other hand, they write the book, they hire their own editor, they hire their own cover designer, they write their own back cover copy blurb. They format it. They can either hire it out or they do it themselves. So a lot of the stuff that, or most of the stuff that the traditional publisher would take on, indie authors are doing on their own. Now, that said, traditional or indie promotional comes down to the same thing. It's always the author's responsibility until you get up to a huge level of success. And then the publisher kind of takes that over, or at least subsidizes the publicity that's done for the book. But aside from the publicity and the promo, I'm going to take my glasses off. I'm seeing a reflection. Promo comes down to the author. Indie, everything comes down to the author. Traditional, you hand all that off to the publishing house.
Wow. So for all the listeners out there now, they know the difference, right? Because
yeah,
you know, there's so many different types of publishing. There's so many different types of editing and copywriting, and you know that goes into books that a lot of us don't know. Like a lot of people who don't write wouldn't notice. And then if they want to write a book, you know, I always try to get that information out there so that they know the differences that they can go, the different avenues, right? The different paths.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when I first started, indie was, when I got serious about writing, indie was just starting to take off. And I have a couple of really good friends who hit that sweet spot and just made a huge name for themselves out of the gate, right when the indie market was really just shooting into the stratosphere. But there again, I also saw how hard they were working. And I'm like, I just want to write the book and hand it off. Literally, that's all I want to do. Everything else I have to do, which the promo stuff, you know, that's a different animal. But write the book, hand it off. Somebody edits it, hands it back to me. I take care of the edits. I give it back to them, and then it's all in their hands. And I go on to the next project, which is how I'm able to write as many books as I have since 2014.
So, Anna, what got you into the romance genre?
Picking up that first romance book. It was a total accident. I think it was freshman or sophomore year in high school. I was reading adult books way young. I picked up my first Stephen King book when I was 8. So there was no YA books in the 70s and early 80s. Yeah. So it was like Dick and Jane Run Home, or it was, you know, Stephen King. So I had Carrie and Firestarter and Christine under my belt before I was 10, and I was starting to run out of things to read. And we were taking a standardized test in high school at one point in freshman year, and I had forgotten to bring a book from home. And a friend of mine had an extra romance novel, and she said, "Here, why don't you just read this?" And it was by Nora Roberts, and it was Silhouette Intimate Moments, number 96. I still have the book. I even got the book signed when I finally met her. And I read that book and went, I need to know how to do this. I loved, and this particular one had some suspense in it. It had some mystery, had a little bit of spice in it, and it was a happily ever after. And I'm like, well, these are the kind of movies I've always liked. And I don't mean romantic comedies. I mean like adventure, romance. And I'm like, that's just, and from there on, I could not get my hands on enough of romance novels. I mean, it was seriously like an addiction, and it still is. It's still my absolute favorite genre.
Well, they used to have the Hallmark movies that came out, I think in the 80s, early 90s, where they were making them from books.
They still do. I mean, that's how I got one of my books optioned. That was a complete surprise to me. I had absolutely nothing to do with that. In fact, I found out about it about 2 weeks after they'd started filming. But yeah, the Hallmark movies have been around for a really long time. I'll admit, I don't watch a whole lot of them. I am an action movie, science fiction, blow 'em up movie fan. So
totally opposite from what you write.
Actually, yes. Well, with the exception of my romantic suspense stuff, yeah. So my books tend to fall into the kind of Hallmark genre with a little bit more depth and more emotional conflict in them. But you know, it is what it is.
So you say spicy and suspense. So like, is there like a murder mystery, love story? Like,
I do a little bit of everything in my suspense books. So there's usually a lot of excitement. I call them my roller coaster books because the plot line is kind of going like this. There's a ramp up of excitement, and there's a release and a drop, and then maybe we'll dive a little bit into the relationship, and then the excitement starts to ramp up again. I think the first movie I saw that really gave me a feel for the kind of books that I wanted to write was Terminator. And that romance between Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn, and Michael Biehn is still one of my all-time favorite actors. Oh my God, he doesn't get enough work. I want him on everything. But that romance between them that was interspersed with the action and the life-threatening situations, those are really the kind of books that I'm really trying to focus on writing now. I'm still writing the sweet Hallmark type stuff, but the excitement and the adventure romance, those are really, those make my blood rush with excitement and anxious to get to the computer to see what's happening next.
So how do you build your characters? Is it from the action movies that you watch?
I think different situations inspire the characters. For example, my book Exposed, which actually I've got right here, it's out now. Book 2 will be out in November 21st. So my idea for this actually came from watching an episode of White Collar, which was a show that was on a number of years ago with Matt Bomer and Tim McKay. And it was about a con artist, art forger who teams up with an FBI agent to solve crimes. Well, in an episode that dealt with the main character's best friend, Mozzie had bid on an old storage unit. And when he went into the storage unit, it was filled with all this kind of photographs and photography equipment and everything. And I went, oh, that's really interesting. And from there, I come up with the idea that really kickstarted Exposed, which was a female photographer. She works as a paparazzi in Hollywood, and her side hustle, her kind of art projects, is that she collects old undeveloped film, and she gets them from antique dealers or from old storage units. And when she develops a roll of film that she's given by a friend, she discovers evidence that calls into question a notorious murder conviction from 20 years before. So what does she do with this? And that's kind of where the book starts and where the excitement starts to ramp up. And then, of course, she gets involved with a cop, and the cop has his own reasons for kind of wanting to keep this evidence under wraps. So we got a little conflict going there, and the sparks fly between them, of course, because you need a little, romance and heating things up as the story's moving along. So, and this will be the first in 5 books. I've got 5 different heroines who are going to be leading the way. And you meet all of the heroines in book 1. And it's kind of like a women's murder club situation where they all kind of join forces to try to solve the mystery that is unlocked when this film is revealed.
I kind of like it.
It was fun to write.
There's any murder mystery clubs out there, right, that we could join?
I know, right? Yeah.
Now, the cover is called, the cover of your book is Exposed. So do you want to explain a little bit about the cover and how you got the name and all of that good stuff?
Well, fortunately with these books, I've been really lucky. I'm terrible with titles. You can ask my editor at Harlequin. I mean, she asked me for title suggestions and I'm like, you're not going to like anything I come up with. It's just not going to work. But with this, Exposed, it's in all of these books so far. I've written the first 2. I'm starting the 3rd one pretty soon. But the titles have always more than one meaning. So Exposed not only refers to her work as a photographer when she's developing film in her darkroom, which she does old-fashionedly, as well as working on the computer for digital photography. But her first love is film photography, which needs to be exposed in order to be developed. And then she's also exposing some Hollywood secrets that a lot of people have a vested interest in keeping quiet. So as each of the book progresses, it's interesting how often the title manages to fit into whatever situation I've written. The second book is called Vanished, and it deals with missing women. And the heroine of that book, her sister went missing 8 years ago. She vanished. Nobody knows what happened to her. And so pulling that in. So those are really what the titles the titles. And I'm not going to tell you book 3 yet because it kind of exposes the outcome of book 2. So I'll announce the 3rd book as soon as book 2 hits the shelves.
Well, and I think it's really incredible the way that you expose it, the pictures, and I would have never thought of that, like you go down, you go into the sheds and the storage units and all that. You buy these old storage units that are auctioned and all that.
Right.
I never would have thought like you could buy, like get picture films and all that you could develop, right? You just never know what you would find.
Exactly. And I think this is where having a writer's mind is both challenging and exciting, because you never know where your thoughts are going to take you. And people are always asking me, where do you get your ideas for your stories? I literally do not know. I never know what's going to trigger an idea, but I've got tons of notebooks filled with different ideas that I've gotten at different times from different usually when it's watching television shows or TV movies or movies, mainly because I see something that I'm like, oh, I wonder what I could do with that. Or I wonder how I could flip that on its head and do something different. That's usually what happens.
So the cover of your book, who designed the cover?
So the cover was designed by our Authors on a Dime, located at authorsonadime.com. The cover artist is actually a best-selling author in her own right. Her best-known pen name is Abigail Owen. She does amazing paranormal romances, and she's got a YA series right now that is unbelievably good. Almost made me want to write a YA book. That's how good that book is. Pretty much what she asks is just a general idea of what the story's about and if I have any ideas for a cover. Now, I'm used to just filling out a quick sheet, or not quick, but a sheet for my publisher, sending it off, and then they come up with whatever ideas they think fit. But this was more involved process, which was really fun. It was really the first time I got to have really say in what the cover does, because it's my idea, and this is where Ark Manor, and it's Caezik romance, by the way, Caezik, Caezik, and it's their romance line, and they're usually a science fiction and fantasy publisher, but they're branching out into romance. So one of the great things that the publisher Shahid said was he agreed to let me hire my own cover designer. And I had worked with Abigail on some other projects, and I went to her and we worked through it, and she came up with about 3 or 4 different ideas. Ironically, this was not the one I liked the best. This is the one my editor liked the best. And she said it was mainly because she hadn't seen anything like it before. So I knew we wanted to do the title in something that looked like crime scene tape. And we knew we wanted to put the series name on there. And then I knew I wanted a woman with a camera. And usually in a romantic suspense, you'll see a couple. But she really couldn't find any pictures that were impactful enough that really conveyed the feel of the story. But when she showed me this picture and we tweaked it a little bit, and I looked at it and I went, that's really cool. Because she carries kind of a backpack thing, and and the camera's front and center. And that's really what I wanted focus on, because photography and imagery is really a big part of this book. So, and then it's the skyline of Los Angeles in the background, because it does take place in Hollywood, which gives me a whole bunch of things to play off of.
And the colors are like really saucy, like they're like, like a nice flow.
Yeah, and we've got this lighting effect. I don't think it necessarily comes through, but there's kind of like this zooming effect. And Vanish, which I haven't gotten the print copies of those yet, but it's blue. Blue is blue and yellow are the main colors. And then the 3rd book, it's more of a blood red with the darker colors. So we're keeping the same feel for all of the books, so that you would look at them in a row and you would know that they're all connected. And that was very purposely done.
So Anna, out of all of the books that you've written, do they have the same color pattern in them, or are they all different?
Oh, no, they're all different. Like I said, I don't have any control over what Harlequin decides to put on the cover of my book. Like I said, I fill out what's called an art fact sheet. So it's about a 6-page drop-down form that I fill out online. It usually takes me anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to fill it out, where I give all the details of the book, all the imagery, any important images that I think that I can pull from the story that would make a great cover shot. And then I hand it off. And then the next thing I know about it is when they have finished the cover and I get a picture of it. So, really the Red Lily books are the first ones that I've had any control over the cover. And they're all different. In fact, here, I'll show you. This is my upcoming release for Heartwarming. This is my sweet romance. That means no sex on the page. That's how I define sweet. I know other people define it otherwise, but it's sweet. But you can tell that this is very different. And this is the same publisher for these two books. This is my Romantic Suspense.
Oh.
So, and they both come out on the same day. They both come out on the 26th of September. And this one is my excitement roller coaster book. And this is my laid back, this is my fake date wedding book. Then this particular series takes place in Hawaii. And then this particular book takes place in Las Vegas.
Well, I noticed the second book is almost the same color flow as Expose, because it's got the yellow and it's got the red with the...
Yeah, it is a little bit, but I mean, that's purely coincidental.
Wow.
Purely coincidental. So, yeah. It's a process.
So how long does it take you to write one book?
Depends on the book. I think the least amount of all of my books are either 70 to 100,000 words. I think Vanished, the book that comes out in November, turned into 130,000, which explains why it was kind of a beast to write. And I had to rewrite it twice because I just wasn't happy with it. But my Harlequins that take me usually from anywhere from 20 to 30 writing days. I don't always write every single day. I tend to write in about 15 to 20 page spurts. And I think the least amount of time it's taken me to write a book was 18 days. And that is just when the story was just there. I don't plot. So I'm figuring out as I'm writing, and sometimes that slows me down. And other times it's almost energizing because I'm anxious to find out what happens next. So yeah, I would say average 25 to 30 days to write a 70,000 page book.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
It is. And every time I get to the end of one, I'm literally like banging my head on the desk going, why do I do this? And there's always a point in every single book where I'm on text messaging with my two best writing friends. It's Melinda Curtis and Carrie Lynn Webb, who both write for Harlequin as well. And I'm just like, I can't find my big girl panties today. I just can't do this anymore. I said, I don't know how this gets harder with every book. And then I get over that hump and we get to the end and I'm on to the next book. And it's just like, I imagine that's kind of like how a lot of people feel about childbirth. You know, they don't necessarily remember it because they've got the baby. My mother always says she never remembers the childbirth part of it. So I'm going to assume that that's a good, equal statement. I have no idea. I don't have children, but yeah, there's a torture part of every book, and then you get over it and you're on to the next story. So
we have a question here. Can
Sure.
you tell me a little bit more about the sweet romance compared to the spicy romance?
Sure. So like I said, sweet romance for me is defined as no sex on the page. And actually in my Heartwarmings, there's no sex in the book at all. The heroine might have a couple of tender kissy moments. But nothing super intimate. Harlequin likes to define this line as a line that granddaughters through grandmothers can read.
Okay.
And there's nothing in there that anybody would find objectionable or offensive. There's no swearing. There's no sex. There's nothing that would have like an 8 or 9-year-old, like I would have been reading these books, coming up to somebody and going, well, what does this mean? You're not going to find those in the Heartwarmings. Heartwarmings are Hallmark movies with a lot more emotional conflict between the characters in real life situations, usually in small towns. So that's my definition of sweet romance. Other authors will define sweet romance in other ways. One word that gets bandied about a lot with Harlequin and with the Heartwarming line, and this was not by author's choice, is the word clean. I despise that phraseology for any kind of romance because it implies that there's something dirty and wrong about sex, and there ain't, especially if you're doing it right. So you will often see clean and sweet used interchangeably. I never use the word clean. And if anybody wants to blame somebody for that term, you can blame Amazon, because they found it was a good search engine word. So that's how that word got tagged onto a lot of the sweeter romance lines. So by my definition, sweet just means it's very inoffensive, but it is also very emotionally impactful between the hero and the heroine. And then you get to the spicier, which can run the gamut from anything to a close the door and this, you don't see the sex, but you know the sex is happening, to a full-on love scene, which I do in my romantic suspenses, but it's not graphic. It's not
dirty.
Well, yeah, but you know what? Dirty is kind of in the eye of the beholder. I probably use some words in exposed in my love scenes, especially, that my sweet, clean readers would find shocking, which actually, if they know me and follow me on social media, it shouldn't be shocking at all. I actually have a very filthy mouth, but it's more sexual content in the spicier romances. And that can go anywhere from, like, you know, relatively tame love scenes. I'm kind of middle of the road. I actually don't like writing sex scenes, mainly because my imagination can only take me so far, apparently. And then that goes all the way up, and then you get into erotica, and erotica is its whole other division of romance that I do not write. I also don't read it, so I'm not really qualified to speak as to the details about that particular thing. But erotica is like the super, super spicy, blushing, just thinking about it kind of sexual content in those books. But mine goes middle of the road. I try to be as inoffensive as I like to write what I like to read. And sure, I like sex in my books because I think sex between the hero and the heroine often intensifies the situation that they're in. And if it complicates the situation that they're in, it gives me a lot more to work with the story. So, so that's the difference. I hope that answered the question, the difference between the sweet and the spicy.
Interesting too, Anna, that you mentioned that, because we don't talk about clean, you know, I just saying that word.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
Right. It's like, it shouldn't be a dirty thing. And if we're teaching children that sex is dirty, we're not teaching them proper intimacy, you know, the relationship, the connection, the building, the bond. Like, you know, there's so much dirt out there that they're changing the graphics of it, so it's not enjoyable anymore. Right.
And it's also, and what bothers me about that whole thing is, if you're so worried about that, then the children really aren't learning what they do need to learn, which is what is offensive and what is wrong. Because if all sex is wrong, I mean, it opens a whole can of worms. And I'll say this, reading romances from the time I was 12 and 13 years old, and I went to a Catholic high school. I went to Catholic school my entire education until college. Number one, I got a great sex education in my high school. Presentation High School had a mandatory 6-month sex education program when we were freshmen. And it was, I mean, you learned everything, taught by a nun, which just cracks me up. But it gave me such a grounded place to come from when I discovered romance novels, because what I learned about romance novels was all about respect. And respect is tantamount, as far as I'm concerned, in romance novels. There has to be a mutual respect between the hero and the heroine, however that plays out, either physically or emotionally. So when you get appropriate sexual content and the knowledge that the hero and the heroine respect each other and care about each other, that to me is it's the magic formula for a romance novel.
So we have a question here. When you hear the word romance, what do you think, Anna?
Well, my mind goes to like the classic romance couples, right? From movies mainly. I mean, my all-time favorite movie is The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. I have watched that movie hundreds of times, and I just find it so romantic because there was such respect between those two characters. There was a strong female character. I mean, that character of Maid Marian that Olivia de Havilland played was far before her time. it always cracks me up because it kind of went a de-evolution after that with some characters on screen, right? But in that one, she stood up for herself. She stood up for what she believed in, and she found a man who was doing the exact same thing, but wanted to find a way for them to be together. So for me, that's the kind of relationship and romance that I'm always trying to create. It's the same thing with the Harvey Girls with Judy Garland and John Hodiak, which if you haven't seen that movie, it's just a delightful musical. It's so much fun. But it is, if you're ever looking to dissect what a romance actually is, that movie does it beat by beat by beat. I mean, it is a glorious lesson in the structure of romance. So when you ask me what I think of romance, I think of the classic Hollywood couples, the character couples, you know, Han Solo and Princess Leia. I was 7 when Star Wars came out, and that became my North Star. That was, to me, my entree into storytelling, was watching that screen crawl in 1977 in that theater and seeing one of the first shots being a woman with a gun taking care of herself. I mean, so that to me is at the core of what romance means to me.
And then we have a question here. What book was picked for the television show?
It's called Recipe for, oh my God, what was it called? So the movie was Christmas Recipe for Romance, and the book is Recipe for Redemption. And it's the Heartwarming line. It's the second in my Butterfly Harbor series. I don't believe it's available in print unless you can find it on eBay. Heartwarmings don't tend to last very long in print, but they're always available in digital. And that one should be about $4.99. And what's funny about that, though, is they twisted a lot of that book on its head. It was not written as a Christmas story, but they made it into a Christmas story, which was great. And they kept a lot of my dialogue. They changed a lot of the exterior story. They kept the primary premise, which was a woman who needs to learn how to bake to win a contest to save her family's inn. And the hero is a disgraced celebrity chef who's trying to rebuild his career. He's actually in town to hide, and then he ends up getting caught up in this whole thing. And it's just delightful. And they cast these adorable actors in this, Madeline Leon and Sebastian Sacco, both of whom I follow on social media, and they're just delightful. I got to meet them. I got to go up and visit the set. I even have a cameo in the movie. I'm the pink sweatered pie lady. And it was just a delightful experience. But I loved the book, which is a completely different animal than really the movie turned out to be. But it was, you know, it was such a blessing because it was a dream for me getting anything turned into something on film.
Well, you just never know where your books will go, right? Where your
exactly
stories will take you.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
You have to have that imagination that, oh, this could be picked up. This could, you know, so we don't want to make it, you know, like the erotic sex, you know, because you want a storyline there. Yeah. So is there any works in the future for future books to be turned into movies? Or
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I have a couple of people on my list I'd love to send Exposed to, because I think it would make a fabulous TV series or TV movie. The way that I write, I always kind of see the stories like a film strip in my head. So I think my natural voice lends itself well to a story to be told on film. And I have a couple of actresses I'd love to send it to because, excuse me, I think I've got cat hair in my mouth because my cats are everywhere. But no, right now, and plus I'm not submitting it anywhere as long as the writer's strike is going on. I'm not a WGA member, but I stand in solidarity. So I'm not crossing that and trying to promote anything through Hollywood. I'll wait until things are settled and people are respected and paid what they deserve.
I think it would be a good series because it's got a good saucy, you know.
I think so.
Like there could be a lot of different ways of going at it, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And there's a large cast of characters, and it draws in from multi-generations because my heroine in Exposed has an elderly aunt who was a child star in Hollywood, and she's now in her 80s and she's still dreaming of that comeback. So it has a lot of various aspects in that story that I think would be really fun on film. But you know what? I know tons of other books. I have read so many books that I just go, oh, that would make such a great movie. And I don't know why Hollywood doesn't come to authors more. I don't know why they don't, but they should, because they're such amazing, instead of remaking the same movies over and over, especially look toward romance novels, because romance makes the world go round.
Right? We need romance in life.
Absolutely.
So, Anna, I want to ask you, if I give you the letter T-E-A, what words would you give me tonight for your T?
So for T, I would say tolerance. I'm a big believer in love is love. I don't care who you love. As long as you got love in your life, that's all that matters. And also tolerance of anything that this is something I'm actually been working on, is I try now to refrain from commenting negatively on something I just don't particularly like. You know, I don't like it when other people, what I call yuck on my yum. You know, I have my favorite things. I have my favorite TV shows. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I don't have to comment on something I don't like just because I want to put that out there. That's just ridiculous, and there's too much of it going on in the world.
It's
so
wasted
T for
time.
It's wasted time, it's wasted energy. You know, turn that around, make something positive out of it. So T for tolerance, definitely. E is going to be for excitement. And I think that because I like that adrenaline rush that comes when I'm thinking about the next scene I get to write in the book. And I don't know how it's going to work itself out, and I can't wait to find out how it is. So that's really what drives me to get back to the computer when I'm in that flow of writing and getting the words on the page. And also looking to find a little bit of excitement in life that shakes things up a little bit. You know, I'm headed to Disneyland is one of my favorite places on earth, and my best friend and I go every couple of years. We just booked our trip for next May. This is how far in advance we plan. And there are 2 rides I've always chickened out on going on. And I think this is the year I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm old enough now. Let's conquer these last 2 fears and just get on this ride and do it. And it's an excitement burst that I'm looking forward to experiencing. And I think what I'm going to do, actually, at least with one of them, is put it on Facebook Live. So I'm recording myself while I'm doing it, because that'll actually push me to do it if I'm doing it in front of witnesses. So T for tolerance, E for excitement, and A for adventure. You know, that's what you get when you open a book. You don't know where the story is going to take you. Although the good thing about romance is you always know how it's going to end. A romance will always end in a happily ever after or a happily for now. If it ends in any other way, it's not a romance. Just FYI. But the adventure of a book, the adventure of story, there's nothing like it. When you open a book, when I opened Carrie, when I was 8 years old, Carrie by Stephen King, it was like falling into another person's imagination. And that's how I feel with every book that I open. You are falling into somebody's mind and the world that they've created. That's the same rush I get when I go to Disneyland, because you're stepping into what Walt Disney imagined that he wanted to leave the world. So yeah, tolerance, excitement, and adventure.
I love it. It's a good cup of tea. And that's Excellent. How we do it here. We serve tea in a different way. You know, there's a different flow, and it explains a lot of your storytelling as well. You know, your books, and that's what I told you before we went live was, you know, your tea will just flow your way. I can't tell you guys how your tea is, because I don't know how your life is or the story behind this, you know. And
right.
Like you said, it's not everyone's cup of tea. So, you know, I love when people say that, because I say it all the time. This list is not everyone's cup of tea. So for all the viewers and that, if you don't like the cup of tea, you know, there's always another different cup of tea that you can always watch.
Absolutely.
Know? That's how we move it along. We just, it's like you said, like, you know, not the yuck in my yum. You know, if you don't like it, just slide over.
Just step back and walk away. You know, you don't have to start a fight about it. It's okay.
Right? You don't like it, just move on.
Exactly.
You know, I think that's a good lesson to teach everybody. You know, like if you don't enjoy the content or you don't enjoy what's being served, move along. There's another table. Go to another table. So I want to get into the one word that you gave me. I asked you one word to describe yourself, and you gave me obsessive. So I want to get into that word obsessive. Why that word?
So I am I'm a very typical Gemini. I have 2 sides of my personality, but one side of my personality is when I find something that just clicks with me, I kind of go all in. I I have my favorite shows that I will watch over and over and over again, even to the point where I won't watch anything new just because my old ones bring me enough comfort. And I think I just tend to grab hold of things and I don't let go of them. And for the most part, that tends to be interests and stuff like that. And I'm also very detail oriented if I'm taking on a project. Like I belong to a local romance group here in Sacramento, Northern California, Romance Writers. And I'm helping to plan their September in-person event. We're finally starting to get back to in-person events, which is great because I'm so sick of being online for everything. But I tend to get kind of tunnel vision, and when I see something, especially if I'm on deadline, which I am currently, I will look for anything to distract me from deadline. So procrastination is an art form. That probably should have been my word. But no, if I have my favorites, you know, I've been a Wonder Woman fan since 1978. I've been a Princess Leia obsessive since I was, 7 years old in 1977. So all of those things, once they sink into my psyche, they're kind of there forever.
Now you just went into psyche, so I want to jump into it because at the bottom of your bio here, it says that your TV addiction or rewatching her all-time favorite shows, Supernatural. So that's like so what is it about the Supernatural?
Oh, we need a whole other podcast just for Supernatural.
So, you just went into something that
oh man. So I first and foremost, I don't like horror movies. I love horror books. I don't care for horror movies. And I think it's mainly because horror movies, they're just in your face, right? And I think Supernatural gets a bad rap for being a horror show. It's not. It has elements of horror, but at its core, Supernatural is about family. It's about two brothers who are working through their way through the world, hunting monsters, saving people, and who they find along the way. They build their own family along the way. It starts off with them going to search for their father who's gone missing on a hunt meaning they're hunting supernatural creatures. And it was on for 15 years. And I know I am not the only person I definitely know I'm not the only person who fell in love with this show, because there are conventions where all of the actors show up, and I've been to a number of them. It's just, there is such a family vibe around Supernatural, and the main stars, Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, and also Misha Collins and Jim Beaver, who played Bobby. And all of these people are people you think you know, because Supernatural has become so ingrained in so many fans' lives. But I think it is absolutely the fact that family is all that matters. And that's what my books are about. All of my books are always about family, whether it's a circle of friends or whether it's an actual blood-related family. And I think that's why Supernatural struck such a chord with me. And also because after I went to my first convention, I think they'd been on for 2 or 3 years, when my best friend and I went to a convention down in Los Angeles, we met the main actors. And I mean, it wasn't like it was like a one-on-one actor, but we saw them in person and we saw how they are in real life. And they are two of the nicest, most generous, humble men I think exist in the industry. So who they really are in real life versus who their characters are on this show versus what the show is truly about. It was just, for me, it's a trifecta of obsessiveness. And it's, I love them to death. And ironically, we're filming this on the day where the cast and crew are actually walking the picket lines for the SAG and WGA strike. The entire cast and crew are down there, right? I think they're probably done by now, but they've been marching all day. And it's just, they're just great people, and it translates on the screen. And for those who haven't seen the show, I highly recommend it. Yes, it's a little bit spooky. Watch it with the lights on. I think there's only 2 episodes I can't watch again, and one had to do with clowns, which I think a lot of people can relate to that. But it's just delightful, and I don't mean delightful in happy-go-lucky way, but it's delightful in that it brings comfort to the people who watch it because you feel like you're part of a family.
I want to bring up something that you just mentioned, Anna. You talk about family and you talk about meeting, actors and that in person. People have this perception that actors are different. They're like gods, or they have a different life. They're human beings too, and I try to get this across all of my podcasts that, celebrities are people. They have hearts too. They have lives too. They have their own struggles. Have you ever been like somebody reads your book and they come to your table, they'll see you at a convention or something, and they'll be like, oh, that's what you look like, or oh, that's who you are. Like, have you ever had that happen?
I haven't. I'm not nearly at that level. No, I reserve that kind of interaction for people like Cheryl and Kenyon or Nora Roberts or James Patterson or Stephen King. But no, I have yet to have anybody come up to me and recognize me as an author. That's a ways in the future.
That's in the supernatural series the new series that's gonna come out.
Yeah, really? Yeah, that would be great. Or I'd be happy to write a supernatural book if anybody out there is listening. I know they're doing novelizations, or at least they were at one time. That would be a dream to be able to write a supernatural novel.
So have you ever done any screenwriting or anything like that?
I haven't, but I'm considering kind of diving into it, mainly because I really would like to put Exposed out in submission, but I'd need to have some kind of treatment for it. I can't just say, here, read my book, now turn it into a movie. I'd like to have some idea of what goes into the process.
So if anybody would like to get the Exposed, where can they get it, Anna?
It's available everywhere books are sold. Paperback is $9.99. Digital, I believe it's either $2.99 or $3.99. All the buy links are on my website, authorannastewart.com. And book 2, actually, if you go to Arc Manor /Caezik, actually just go to my website and you can find the buy links to Vanished. We ran into an issue with Amazon. I'm not going to get into it, but they're not letting us do pre-orders for Vanished, at least for digital. You can order the paperback though, but you can pre-order the digital of Vanished directly from my publisher, which is actually better for everybody because then we don't have to give Amazon a cut. So the joke's on them. But
yeah, they take their pretty price.
they take their cut. Yeah. But no, Exposed is available at Barnes & Noble, Kobo. I think the only place it's not available is Google Play, but it's on Apple and Amazon, of course. And so you can find Exposed anywhere. And after November 21st, which is when Vanished comes out, you'll find that everywhere as well.
So any other books that are coming out this year?
Oh my gosh. So let's see. So I have the 2 on the 26th of September. And then I have one in December 26th, which is is it the last one in I think that's the last one in my Honor Bound series, which is called A Detective's Deadly Secrets. That will be out December 26th. And I think that's it until next April.
Oh,
but wow. I think I had 7 books out this year, 6 or 7 books. It's something like that. So, yeah.
So I want to, we're almost at the hour here. I want to ask you, I asked you what your favorite color was and you gave me turquoise. I wasn't expecting turquoise.
I'm a writer. It's a fancy word.
So what is it about turquoise that you like?
I think it's because it's just it's a distinctive color of blue and green kind of. It's a very natural color. I always think when I think of my favorite colors, I think of a peacock. And then I think of one of my favorite Disney movies, Encanto. That explosion of color, those dark, rich pinks, those dark, rich blues, and all of that kind of thing. Those are the kind of colors that they just inspire me and they make me happy. So, and turquoise, I don't necessarily like turquoise jewelry, but the color itself, if I can like set a theme to a color, it is usually within the turquoise, teal blue range.
So it's almost like a nice, smooth, calming effect, right?
It is. And I think it's because I always find water very calming. So I tend to gravitate toward blue in that way, even though water terrifies me if I'm in it. If I'm on the shore, I'm fine with it. Waterfalls, the beach, a lake, anything like that always brings me peace. So I think that's where the turquoise comes from.
Now, before we wrap up, you also do workshops. So I want to talk about that really quickly. So how
Sure.
can anybody get into that?
I'm not scheduled for any right now, I don't think, but I'm always open to coming out and speaking to writers groups or even readers groups or book clubs. And you can just email me through my website there again. And I have a list of workshops on my website, which is under extras. And then just scroll down to writer workshops. And I've got a couple on creating conflict. My favorite workshop to give is actually one on character motivation and addressing why your characters act the way that they do. I'm a big believer in that. Whenever I'm watching a new show, that's how you sell me on a character, is convince me why they're acting the way that they are. And if you haven't convinced me of that, I'm not going to get behind the character. So I created a workshop specifically around that.
Awesome. You know, we don't even talk about the characters like that are in books or in movies or shows, right? We just like turn the show on and then poof. But that's an interesting fact there, because I'm like that too. I'm like, well, why is that person doing that? Like, why did they pick that actor or actress? You know, like, is it the body size? Is it the mindset? Is it the voice? You know, like.
Yeah. And with character in particular on TV shows, like we're currently rewatching Bosch, which is one of my absolute favorite shows. And I think this is the 4th or 5th time we've watched it all the way through. And I find him such an admirable character. I might not always agree with how he acts or what he does, but his motto is everyone matters or no one matters. And that is something I can get behind. And as long as he sticks to that motto, he's got me sold 100%. And I believe it's the same way in the books. I'm just starting the books now. I just finally found the first one in print at Barnes & Noble. So I'm hoping to start that this weekend. But so I'm anxious to see if how the books relate to the TV series. But those are the kind of characters I really like. And those are the kind of characters I try to create.
And how many series do you have?
Oh my God. So I've got the Butterfly Harbor series, which is 12 books, and that is a complete series. The last one came out last year. That's sweet romance, and it takes place in a town inspired by Pacific Grove, California, which is just down the road from Monterey. And then I have the Honor Bound series, which is my romantic suspense series. And that will be 8 books long. The 8th book comes out in December, and that's about a group of friends in various aspects of law enforcement. I've got my Hawaii series, which book 2 is the one coming out in August, the surprise wedding. That will be 6 books so far, and I've got ideas for more, even though I swore I wouldn't write another series longer than 6, but I've got more characters who are popping up. I've got the Exposed series, or the Red Lily series, so that's 4 so far. I also write sweet romance Christmas stories for Christmas Town, and we have 9 collections so far, and those are box sets written by multiple authors, and we've had pretty much the same authors almost all the way through. And our new set, which is Lights, Camera, Christmas Town, where a movie comes to film in Christmas Town, and that will be out on October 10th. So I do have another October release. I forgot about that one. And those that was my first sale to Harlequin, actually, was a novella in Christmas Actually that my friend Melinda Curtis was putting together, and asked me if I wanted to pitch it to Harlequin, and it ended up being my first sale. So we've taken that trilogy and morphed it into multiple box sets with different themes and different authors, all of whom write for Harlequin Heartwarming. And again, you can find all of those on my website. And then let's see what else. Oh, I also write for the Blackwell series, which there are 5 authors, and we each write 1 book in this series. And we're just now writing the series that will be out next year, but we've got 3 series so far. There's the Blackwell brothers, there's the Blackwell sisters, and there's oh shoot, I forgot what the 3rd series is called, but the 4th series is going to be the Blackwell Bells. And let's see what else. Oh, and I also write for the Colton Continuity series for Harlequin's Romantic Suspense. And that is where they pull 12 authors in and have them each take a book that's written in a series that Harlequin has created. So I'll be book 8 next year And I love, love, love how that book turned out. And it was one of the ones that I plotted out a lot more than I usually do. And I was just so happy with the way it turned out because it took so many twists I didn't expect. So I think that's about 6 or 7 series. And I'm probably missing something. Oh, I've got my Nemesis Files series, which is 3 books. And that's kind of light romantic suspense. So I bet you're really sorry you asked me that question right about now, because I'm looking back and seeing I've also got the Sea Last Bay series. And I actually did publish a trilogy of paranormal short stories. It's 3 novellas, 4 if you include the extra one that I wrote. So I did get to write some paranormal that I absolutely loved doing, but I think I'm really finding that romantic suspense and thrillers, possibly with a little bit of horror, is really where I'm headed.
Awesome. Well, Anna, I want to really thank you for joining me on Tea Time tonight. It was a pleasure. And for anybody that's looking for books, Christmas time is coming. Grab a book.
Yes.
Get some romance. Like, stocking stuffers. Books are good. You just never know what you could put, because we get those big Christmas stockings now, not like little ones when we were kids, but we get the big ones now. So fill those up with books, get some reading in there. And again,
Absolutely.
Anna, I want to thank you so much for sitting and having tea with me. And I want to thank all the viewers and listeners out there. If you're listening to the Tea Time on a replay, push #replay. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you'd like to see any of these Tea Times, check out Miss Liz's YouTube channel. Give it a quick subscribe, ring that bell, and you'll be notified when we go live with a new Tea Time. And Anna has wrapped up August, so we are jumping into September. We have 12 incredible guests that are coming in, and we will be adding 3 new countries that are not listed already on Miss Liz's Tea Times. So we'll be almost in 47 different countries, guest-wise. But we are 130 countries worldwide for Tea Time. And again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting Miss Liz. Without all of you guys, I cannot do what I'm doing. So again, check out Miss Liz's website, www.misslizsteatime.com, and check out the YouTube channel. Check out the podcast, Miss Liz's Tea Time. I'm all over. Give it a quick subscribe, give it a follow. And if any of these Tea Times resonate with you, please give them a share, because when you give a share, it's like giving a review for a book. You're actually pushing along the authors as well. So thank you again. And I will see everybody September 7th with 3 new guests, 3 new stories, and 3 new TEAs.